Welcome back to the Walleye Files, guys. Brandon Ruffalo here. We've got a great episode for you this week. We've got a multiple-time top 5 finisher in the National Walleye Tour. He won the Fish to End Hunger event this year. He won the David A. Anderson Shootout. He won the AIM event on Lake Sakakawea. And honestly, he's won a lot of things, and he's cashed a lot of checks over the last 3 years. So you may want to listen up to an angler that is definitely on the rise, Mr. Jake Caughey. Jake's a great dude. Had a great time filming with him. We've never really spoken a lot outside of this podcast, so it's cool to get to know him a little bit. Again, younger dude in fishing, not super young, not super old, but somebody who is definitely on the rise. He understands his electronics, his equipment. He has got that winning attitude, that winning instinct. I don't think he's that far away from getting his first W on the National Walleye Tour. 2026 might just be his year, especially on places like Sakakawea, places that he's done really well at before. And again, it was great talking to him. Jake's a great dude. Had a lot of fun. We can't do this without our sponsors. Without our sponsors, Lake Effect Lure, Striker Brands, Thunderhook, Fly-Ins, Image 360, and Crown Trophy of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Bellevue Spice Company, and Walleye Nation Creations all make up what it takes to put on this podcast. Without those companies, we can't do this. So, make sure you check them all out. They're all amazing. They've all treated me and this podcast with an immense amount of respect, and I appreciate the heck out of all of them. I'm rambling a lot, so we're going to move on with Mr. Jake Caughey. Thanks for watching, guys. This episode of the Walleye Files is brought to you by Thunderhook Fly-Ins, the premium fly-in fishing destination in Ontario, Canada. Trophy walleyes, giant pike, and remote wilderness adventures await. Book your trip now at thunderhook.com. Welcome back to the Walleye Files, guys. We've got Jake Caughey here. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I watched all your podcasts and stuff like that, so you could say long-time listener, first-time caller, just like I told before. So
yeah, I appreciate you listening and watching. Super happy to have you on, dude. You are possibly one of the winningest, most consistent anglers in fishing in the last 2 years, dude. You have fished everything, and you've done really well in a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I love fishing tournaments. I love competing, and I just love being on the water, and I think that kind of forces me a little bit to be on the water more. And yeah, it's been super fun. Been, had some lucky bites, and it's just worked out, I guess. It's finally nice to see some of the hard work and money and time that we've spent over the years kind of recouping itself. But
yeah, I mean, so I do a pretty good deep dive into everybody before they come on. And your first couple of years, they were tough on the national tour. But the last few seasons, dude, I mean, I've got it all written down. You've got 3 really nice checks this last season. 24, you had some great finishes. 23, you had some really nice finishes. What changed?
Everyone's going to say, live scope and stuff like that. Obviously that helps, right? Find me a boat in a walleye tournament right now that doesn't have live scope on it though. So you can't just use that as a crutch. I did dive into the live scope game pretty good and making sure that I need to learn this stuff because man, I was getting my butt whooped pretty good by quite a few guys that were live scoping, and I was just sick of it. I was like, okay, they have stuff that I can have too. I need to go figure this out. What I think a lot of it was too, after you fish for so long and you fish, I've fished the National Walleye Tour for I think 3 years and never even cashed a check. And a lot of people would be like embarrassed about that or whatever. Like I'm an open book. Like that happened. I probably wasn't ready, and I knew that when I fished the National Walleye Tour the first time. It was kind of the COVID year. I had a little time from work, and that kind of worked out. And then I ended up getting addicted to it, like most of us tournament anglers are, and it was super fun. So I wanted to do it again. It made me fish places that I wasn't gonna normally go to, right? And do techniques I hadn't normally done. Well, some of those tournaments, I had pretty good practices. And I was very confident going into the tournament, but when it came to tournament time, either spun out or zigged when I should have zagged, or I just didn't have a lot of confidence in my spot if they had moved or whatever. And my teammates did really well on those spots. So some of them were good spots, but when I kind of figured out how to just calm myself down and just kind of that the mental side of tournament fishing was more important almost than anything else, that really helped. When I just trusted my program and trusted, not worrying about what anybody else is doing, just what the walleyes are doing, how I'm going to catch the walleyes and put them in my boat, not who's catching them or what I saw someone catch one or saw someone fishing a spot or whatever. When I kind of just calmed down and just kind of just trusted myself, stuff really turned around.
Yeah, the mental side I think is the hardest part, especially for me. I think we all can catch fish. I mean, that's why we're here, right? We can all catch walleyes. We're all relatively decent at it, I think. But the guys who are really successful are the mentally strong guys over the last handful of years, for sure, and the guys that obviously embrace the technology as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's kind of cool. When I started trusting myself a little bit more, you watch. So I'm a walleye nut. Like I listen to all the podcasts that have anything to do with walleye fishing or any tournament guy. I've watched every single FLW, RCL, NWT, PWT YouTube tournament video I think there is to watch. So when I saw like recent stuff, guys like Dewey Jelm and those guys going out and they didn't get their big bite or the bite that won the tournament until 1 or 2 o'clock, or didn't find, they had nothing in the box and then rolled up on a spot and crushed them at 2 o'clock with an hour to go. I'm like, man, I've been there way too many times. So and maybe spun out or just was like, it's just not my day. Oh man, something changed. But that kind of just showed me like, hey, everyone else has bad days too, and they stick with it. And I can do that. I totally can do that.
Yeah. Do you attribute a lot of your success the last couple of years to that confidence? Like, yeah, I can do this.
I think part of it was the live scope thing, and then figuring out just I think the live scope paired with, I grew up in Brainerd, Minnesota, right? A lot of clear water lakes, a lot of finesse angling. Finesse angling, I feel like, fits the live scope game a lot better than power fishing. Like where I live now in North Dakota, a lot of guys out here are power fishermen. Like we're gonna pull crank shallow, or we're gonna, fan cast plastics, or run this bank and cast crankbaits, or you're covering water, stuff like that. In Minnesota, we were more finesse growing up, and I feel like when you see the right mark on live scope, like not all of them really giant ones that you need to win tournaments and do well in tournaments really like to bite that often. So I think the finesse angling mixed with the live scope, when I kind of figured it out, and then putting a cable drive trolling motor on my boat, I guess that was a huge deal, and forcing myself to learn it, because I run a tiller, Warrior 2090, the sweetest tillers ever, and man, I love to sit in the back of that thing. You go backwards with the Vantage and look around or pull big minnows or whatever. When I forced myself to learn how to use a cable drive trolling motor, that was that was a big deal too.
Yeah, that's something that I'd never really done before either. Other than the last couple of years, my last boat was actually Dewey's boat from 2017 that he won. And when I got
Okay.
on the front of that, it was like, oh wow, this is way different. This is way different than a Tarova that I'm used to. And then just, you talk about being a finesse fisherman. I'm not. I mean, we pull cranks. I love to pull. The closest thing that I did to finesse is pulling spinners. I love pulling spinners. It is my favorite thing in the world. I don't do it very much anymore, but the pulling shallow cranks, throwing ripping wraps, throwing jigging wraps, that's kind of the Green Bay way here. And the last couple of years, forcing myself to put some lighter line on, put a jig and a crawler on, or put a death jig on, and just try to hover a bait in a fish's nose, it makes you a better angler for sure.
Yeah.
But it helps diversify all the things about fishing, and it definitely makes you a little more dangerous.
Yeah, I always kind of thought it's easier to make a finesse angler power fish than it is to make a power fishing angler finesse fish. You know what I mean? You just setups, all that kind of stuff. I used to never use anything other than a 7-foot medium, fast rod for everything I did ever, whether I was going jigging wraps or rigging or whatever. And now all my rods are 7-foot, 2-inch, medium light, extra fast. It's like, it's crazy how much walleye fishing's changed. It's cool. It's really cool. But it's crazy how much stuff has changed just in the short time that I've been in it. I started 2017, 2018, right? And there was when I just entered every tournament I could. And to see the evolution is between then and now is not even 10 years is insane.
Yeah. And I watched my dad for a long time. My dad fished PWT FLW. And then I obviously transitioned into this in 2020. That was my first year as well, fishing the national side of things. And just from 2020 to now, there's been a lot of animosity. There's some guys that fight back and forth. There's a lot of differing opinions on forward facing or should we do this or that. I actually think the tournament scene's in a better position right now than a lot of people think. I think fisheries are getting better. There's a lot of people taking care of fisheries. You're seeing bigger fish on places like Lake Erie, Sakakawea, Lake Oahe. You're getting 14 to 15 pounders. It's just really like this next season is going to be really exciting. There's going to be some giant fish caught.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it too. I mean, there's some bites this year that we went to that if it wasn't for forward facing sonar, it would have been quite interesting. It was tough, and like even the championship at Green Bay, right? Man, that would have been interesting. There would have been a lot less big bags, a lot less big fish, a lot less excitement. I think it would have been like, oh man, how am I going to catch 5? I think without forward facing sonar. But yeah, it comes down to the stewardship of it, and I think that you're going to see more big fish than ever before because in order to be a big fish, you got to be a little fish first. And man, if you're pulling a spinner or a crankbait, there's not really anything that says a little fish or a big fish is going to eat it, right? When you're trolling along a break line and you see a 17-incher and a 27-incher, I know which one I'm casting at. And the less times you bring that 17-incher up to the boat and have a jig or a crankbait or whatever in its mouth, ripping its guts out, that thing's going to be a big walleye sooner or later. And I don't see the fisheries getting any worse with forward facing sonar. I know there's talk about panfish and stuff like that, ice fishing. Yep. Totally agree there. Can we take some of our limits away or lower them? Absolutely. It probably should happen anyways with the amount of fishing pressure on a lot of these lakes. Is it because of forward facing sonar that we need to do that? Probably not. But it comes down to us as sportsmen being stewards too. And I just don't think that the forward facing, I think it's the easy crutch for everyone to blame stuff on.
Sure. Totally agree. So, Jake, when you show up to a new body of water, especially for a tournament, what is your kind of, how do you break down the water from start to finish?
So, I guess, I kind of learning growing up, I did it wrong so many times that, I kind of figured out a little process that worked. And one thing that I kind of took to heart was back in the day I was watched Corey Springle, like, man, who didn't at our age, who didn't idolize what Corey Springle did? Like, one of the greatest walleye anglers ever. And he always said, I always try to go where I know I can catch a limit right away or where I can catch fish right away. Just put fish in the boat. And sometimes that's what I do. Sometimes I go to, a spot and I'm like, okay, I think look at a map or I guess looking at currents, when you're on the Great Lakes or water temperatures, look at a map and say, if I was a walleye, where would the biggest concentration of them be, or a river or whatever. And I go there and try to get bit right away. Just to test it's like a litmus test, right? Okay, they're definitely not biting jig crawler. We need to figure something out, or they're definitely not on this type of crankbait, or they're eating bobbers or whatever. And that kind of leads you into when you do go out of those areas where there might not be as many fish, but the right fish to win the tournaments. You kind of have a litmus test of, okay, this worked here. Now I kind of have a pattern going. Let's see if it works on some bigger ones. And that's kind of how I try to break it down.
So when your pre-fish doesn't, when your pre-fish plan doesn't work in a tournament, how do you adjust to that, or how do you scramble and make something out of nothing?
Yeah, so I mean that's something that happens more often than not. I think what started making me better in tournaments, and what I just kind of watched growing up through the getting my butt kicked, guys would just make adjustments during the tournament, and I would trust my program, but then it'd be like, okay, they're definitely not here, or they moved. Especially, I had never fished the Great Lakes before I fished the NWT in 2020. So if you can imagine, I mean, you fished Green Bay your whole life, so like in the blink of an eye, some current, some water temperature, something can come in and wreck something really fast. Hours, a moon phase, right? And I just learned, like, okay, they're not here. Where would I go if I was, where is my hypothesis, on where these walleyes went? And then just run water and trust your electronics. I hear all growing up, these guys are just like, yep, trust your electronics, trust your electronics. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. No, you really have to. Like, guys drive around for, they say, hours at times without making a cast until they see what they're looking for. Like, that's real. That's real stuff nowadays. Like, if you're not seeing them, keep looking, because eventually when you run across them, like, they might all bite.
This episode of the Walleye Files is presented by Image 360 Inc. and Crown Trophy of Oshkosh, Wisconsin. For over 30 years, Image 360 and Crown Trophy have been Oshkosh's go-to for signs, vehicle graphics, custom apparel, and awards. Proudly serving northeastern Wisconsin with quality that speaks volumes. Your brand deserves to stand out. Let's make it unforgettable. Need signs that pop, graphics that roar, and branded apparel that turns heads? Image 360 and Crown Trophy in Oshkosh have been rocking northeastern Wisconsin for 30 years. From bold branding to epic awards, we bring your vision to life. Let's go. Love Image 360 and Crown Trophy.
So,
yeah, I think water temperature, especially in the Great Lakes, people just discount that, I think. And it'll never, ever stray from my mind that is the most important thing in the world when you're fishing a Great Lake, especially.
100% agree. For example, last day of the championship, Green Bay, the water temperature between my spot over on the east side that I was fishing and the west side was almost 20 degrees. I mean, it was ice cold on the west side. And I think everybody knew that was going to happen with the giant wind and whatnot. But for example, I went over a spot where the leaders were on day one, and some good bags got caught. And I drove over that and looked at the water temperature on the way to my spot, and I was like, not happening today, boys. Not like that is bad. That's bad news. We got a shot here, And obviously Tom Wynn does what Tom Wynn does, and just, well, yeah, I'm gonna go over here, and they should be over here, and yep, there they are, or whatever. And figured it out. But he didn't catch him where he caught him the day before. So because I was like, oh, this might work out here. And so yeah, it's the water temperature moved those fish or shut them down, and when he found warmer water, and there he goes and wins the tournament. But yeah, it's the Great Lakes water temperature is something to be said.
Yeah, I just, and you don't see it as much on certain river systems or other places, but especially Green Bay, I think, some of these places like Green Bay or Erie or other places are just so wind driven. A lot of times you can point, wind's pushing it, that's where we're going. Whether you pre-fished it or not, like, I just, that is something to definitely behold.
Yeah, for sure. And I was, super lucky to be able to team up with Hunter Will and Isaac for the championship and learn, Isaac's got a ton of days on the bay. And he basically said, he's like, man, yeah, pre-fishing is going to help us, but I'll look at the wind the day of the tournament and I'll tell you, like, one of these 5 spots is where it's going to go down. And it's got to be windy, but, it'll go down right here. And he's pretty right. He's pretty spot on when it comes to that. So definitely on the bay, wind is such a big deal. And we saw that in practice when they got flat calm. You had to, like, finesse. And we still got them, but not when that wind's blowing. It's definitely a different deal. You're like, oh, okay, these fish do bite. Like, that's crazy.
What's it like traveling with those guys? You travel with some great anglers all through the last handful of years. What's it like with all those guys?
It's super fun. I haven't really ever traveled with anybody that's super close to my age, I guess. I would say like probably Kent Anderson and Kurt Hansen are probably the closest to my age, and I get along with those guys super well. But man, they are who it's funny because you got like Isaac, who's more my age, and he's more like the voice of reason a little bit, and Will is too. Will's kind of like the calm one who kind of just lets everything play out and then, kind of decides, okay, I'm going to go this way or that way, and like super chill and funny and, has good one-liners. And then Hunter, he's like, man, Hunter's freaking gassed down all the time. Like he's super funny personality. And so it's a good mix. Like we went out to dinner, with my parents in Green Bay because they showed up to watch the tournament weigh-in and stuff like that. And Hunt comes out to supper, and I'm like, oh man, like Hunt, just please don't say something stupid in front of my parents. I mean, he said plenty of stupid stuff in front of my parents, and they loved it. They're like, oh, we love Hunter. He's so funny. I'm like, oh. But yeah, Hunt is the life of the party a lot of the time, and but yeah, it's super fun. That's a really good group and a really talented group of anglers, man. Those guys, they get her done, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all really, really special anglers. Like you said, Isaac's as hot as anybody on the tour. Hunter, obviously, an Angler of the Year winner. Will cashes a lot of checks. It takes a lot of people's
Everywhere.
money everywhere.
Yeah.
Does that translate a lot when you travel with those guys? Kind of an iron sharpens iron kind of a deal.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Because they're super good with their forward facing too. And so like if I'm seeing something, I'll just be like, hey, this is kind of what I'm seeing or whatever. And they're like, yep, same thing. That I'm seeing the same thing. Or someone sends something and says, yep, did it, this color, pattern, speed, water depth, anything. And you're like, okay. You move out and try something that's kind of similar to that, and all of a sudden you start catching them. You're like, wow, I never would have thought of that. The one thing, I've been buddies with those guys for a while now, and we'll just be fishing local tournaments against each other around home or whatever, and you just sit down and have a couple beers after, and you're just talking about like what you saw and like how you caught them, and like they're doing the same thing, and you're like, man, I never would have thought of doing that or looking in that spot. Like that's pretty sneaky. Like that's good shit. And it's so fun. It's fun to bounce stuff off guys like that who are looking at the same stuff you are. So
yeah, it's cool. I mean, the relationships are special, right? Dan Harper and I travel together. That's my best friend in the world. I met him. He was my co-angler on Lake Erie in 2021. Like
Dan is the man.
Dan is the man. But same thing. Dan and I could sit down at the end of the day, have a couple cocktails, and he'll say something, and you'll be like, "Holy crap! I didn't even think of those things." Like he has changed the way, and some of the guys I've traveled with have changed the way I approach fishing tournaments or just fishing in general.
Yeah, and that's why you do it. Like I tell people, yeah, we go pre-fish for a week for these tournaments, and like a lot of times when I'm pre-fishing Lake Erie or Green Bay or something like that, I learn stuff while I'm pre-fishing throughout the week that like I never have done before. I'll throw a bait maybe I haven't thrown before, and then I bring that back to like central Minnesota or central North Dakota where I fish a lot of local regional tournaments, and it whoops. And it's like, man, I would have never learned that if I wouldn't have gone to like Sault Ste. Marie and tried to get those super stingy clear walleyes to bite, or Green Bay on a flat calm day, or stuff like that. And it comes down to spending time on the water, but also hanging out with another angler who sees it the way you do. It opens all kinds of possibilities up.
It sure does. Last handful of years, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten from anybody?
I wouldn't even say like it was technically given to me, but Springle said once in some video I was watching, because I'm a huge Corey Springle fangirl, even though he's not a good trash talker. But he said you got to beat the walleyes before you worry about who's in the tournament, or and it's you versus the walleyes, and that's probably the best piece of advice that anybody could really take. Like it's you versus the walleyes. Like none of your competition are gonna come over to your boat and mess up a net job or break your line or anything like that. Like it's just you and the walleyes. So go out and worry about yourself. And that's another thing, there's throughout the past, I don't know, 3 years, there's been a lot of drama with, walleye fishing tournaments in general, whether it's weights and fish or, blow days or whatever, right? And if you get caught up in all that extracurricular stuff, like when I just started worrying about Jake and no one else, and just, I'm going to worry about my program, because here's another piece, control the controllables. Brandon Polinick, I watch, yeah, right. Like I'm a BMP guy. I should have worn my BMP sweatshirt that I ordered off the website because I want to be cool, like like that kind of stuff. When you worry about yourself and control what you can control, you're going to end up doing just fine more often than not. If you get caught up in what everybody else is doing and worry about what everybody else thinks about you and how you look and all that stuff, it just doesn't go as good as it does when you just keep, worry about yourself.
Yeah, I think clear mind, keep your head, keep staring forward. And honestly, my pre-fish is I stopped calling people. I stopped talking to people. I put headphones in and I just go fishing. This episode of the Walleye Files is brought to you by Lake Effect Lures, the tackle that turns every cast into a catch. Built for serious anglers, tested on real fish, and proven to get bites when nothing else will. Get yours at lakeeffectlures.com. I think, putting your headphones in and just trudging forward, not thinking about anything, not talking to anybody, and just forcing yourself to put the blinders on and go fishing. It's super awesome for me because I don't have to get any outside influence. There's no doc talk. There's no, people calling me, telling me, yeah, they're biting like this. And then I don't catch them that way. I get frustrated. So doing your own thing, worrying about you, like you said, Jake worrying about Jake, you're the only guy that's going to dictate how you do in a tournament anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Doc talk is hilarious too. I don't get too into that or even try to like play the mental games with people and whatnot. Like a lot of times I'll be like, yeah, I caught a few today. Like just tell them what's up. But like you're not in someone else's boat. You're not looking at their electronics with their settings. You're not using their rod. They're not using your rod, your cadence, your style. Like you could have been on totally different fish. You could have been on a fired up fish instead of a lazy fish. Or like Doc Talk is just like, I always say the best part about tournament day is that's when all the bullshit gets weeded out. All the Doc Talk it's done. There's nothing. It's all about putting your nose to the grindstone on tournament day, and that's where the money's made. That's why they don't write checks for practice, right? I've won practice more times than anybody I've ever met in my entire life, just like everyone else, right? But I've never cashed a check winning practice. So
yeah, I'd be a millionaire, dude. Oh my god. So we talked a little bit about the industry, things that are clouding the industry. You talked about weights and fish and other things, but how can we improve the industry? What can we do better?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like just in anything nowadays. Like social media is such a diarrhea of the mouth for everybody. Like there's not a ton of positive stuff said. We're so negative on everything nowadays. Like, man, this sucks. This sucks. This sucks. That sucks. And it's like, maybe we should just appreciate what we got a little bit because there's going to be times where, in the future, if you don't have that, you might be like, man, that was really fun when we had that. It might not have been like exactly what we wanted, but man, that was pretty fun. That was a pretty special deal or whatever. And I think being positive is just going to bring more people into the sport too. If you get a bad rap, oh, walleye anglers, they're a bunch of babies, they're always crying about this or whatever. They're all the guys with all the money or, stuff like that. It's just going to give the sport a bad rap. And we want kids to come into the sport, like talking crap about live scope and all that. Like, man, there is some kids coming up who are going to be whooping our tails eventually with that stuff. And there's a lot of people who are jealous about it. And like, I can't say like, I'm super happy to have all these kids come into walleye fishing and take our money because, man, it's pretty nice cashing checks, but it's going to make you sharper too. So I think like you need to welcome any changes. And yeah, there is going to be some changes that you don't agree with. Like, am I totally on board with everything that's happened in every tournament circuit that I've fished over the last 6-7 years? No, I'm not. There's things that I'm like, well, that kind of sucks, and that doesn't. But at the end of the day, you're probably going to go fish those tournaments anyways. So maybe just be positive about it, show up and fish the tournament. Do we do this for money? No, not really. Is the money nice when you win? Yeah, but I don't think any of us are getting rich cashing checks in tournaments. Well, maybe Isaac, but yeah, no one else.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm definitely not. I spend a lot of money at work so I can pay to go fish tournaments and have fun.
Exactly. Like, day job is definitely number one because if that goes away, they're my best sponsor. Let's put it that way. They actually put money on every 2 weeks. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife would, she'd probably smack me if she knew how much money I've actually spent on fishing for the last 10 years.
Well, that comes down to like if a guy dies, just you got to tell the wife, don't ever sell my stuff for what I told you I paid for it.
Yeah, I mean, I met my wife fishing in tournaments. Like she's fishing tournaments with me. It's cool, but I get to go on a lot of vacations to catch walleyes, and she is pretty amazing staying home and hanging with the dog and the cats.
That is pretty nice. Yeah, I would say you got a good situation going there.
Life is good. Jake, how do you mentally prepare for big tournaments? Do you do anything different?
Not really. Like, not a super superstitious person. I one thing I am is I like to be prepared. So when I'm prepared, everything's good, mentally. Like, okay, I'm just gonna calm down. Get off the water around noon, probably the day before the tournaments. Rig what you need to rig. Take a shower. Go to the rules meeting. Whatever. Make sure the boat's full. You got ice. All that stuff. When I'm prepared, that's when I'm at my best mentally for the tournament. When I'm not prepared, which is not super often, but I wish I would have done that last night. I didn't get it done. And that's usually when something in the tournament that like, your morning checklist that you go through, it's usually when something gets forgotten or, oh, I was going to do that, or I needed to, tighten this cable on the battery or whatever. So I guess mentally is just being prepared, and that, that takes care of the ease of it. Go have supper and get a good night's sleep and go from there. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think from when you leave the driveway to when you're tying your last knot before a tournament, if you have things organized and you're prepared physically, mentally, whatever, I think that eases a lot of burden on tournament day.
Yeah, for sure. And I always tell people, like, I label all my boxes and I have all my jigs in certain boxes, and just like we all do, right? But I'm sometimes it's a little over the top, but I'm like, hey, you never know when I'm going to be rifling through something and I got a big one on the screen up front, and I am like, hey, buddy, can you grab the 3/16 ounce hybrid jigs, gray in color? Like, and that label or that box just like helped us, shave 5 minutes off dinking around, and there we go. We got one because of it or something like that. You never know, because time is money out there, right? It literally can come down to that last bite. it did this year. And two of the tournaments that we ended up winning this year came down. One was literally the last bite, pulled the trolling motor and drove in. And then another one was in the last 15 minutes. So I mean, it's any amount of messing around in those days for 5 minutes could have cost you those fish, right?
Yeah, all the angler profiles before the championship, they asked for a tip, I think. Danny Plouts put a tip down. Danny's a good buddy of mine. I've known Danny since I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, I like Danny. He's a good dude.
But the tip he put down was possibly the most eye-opening tip you can make. He said, if you waste 5 minutes every hour of a tournament day, you've just wasted 40 minutes of your day. That's the difference between how many casts can you make in 40 minutes?
Too many.
Yeah.
It's that's a super good tip. I totally agree with it because, like, man, you're hunting and nowadays it's you're hunting down those big ones and you never know when like it's gonna be that time where you turn the trolling motor and there's the one. Like, you just got to keep hunting and. That happened to us this year on Lake of the Woods. We actually ended up tying for first place with Hunter and Isaac, which was something crazy. They've never ever had that before. And last cast of the day, I knew there was a minor in the afternoon. And an hour before a minor is usually when it starts actually heating up, and the minor is actually the best bite of the day, in my opinion. But it's a short little bite window. But if you're prepared for it, like you'll get them. I knew like we had about a half an hour of that minor we were going to catch before we had to go in the afternoon. And we got like 3 upgrades in the last half hour. And the last one was like a 30 incher. And it was our third 30 plus incher of the day. And we drove, I like literally saw it hit the floor of the boat, pulled the trolling motor before I even went back there to take the picture and stuff like that. Cause I knew we were going to have to skedaddle, and took the picture and went in. And that's literally what won/tied the tournament for us. So it's just crazy how that, last second or that little bit of time that we could have wasted throughout that whole day might not have got us that fish.
That's insane, dude. That's as clutch as it gets.
Yeah, I was like, man, this feels pretty good. It was a really good mark, and like saw it come up, and my buddy Jared netted it and put it on the floor, and I was like, well, I think we had like a 27 3/4 or something that we still had on the card that we needed to upgrade. And yeah, that was a good upgrade right there in the last second. It's crazy that tournament. So the aim works as like it's a length to conversion and stuff like that. Our weights were the same. So we're like sitting out there, and I knew Isaac, he was my roommate for the Warrior deal because we have the whole Warrior week up there and stuff, and me and Isaac share a room at the Wigwam. And we're talking, yeah, going here tomorrow. I'm like, oh, we're going to be pretty much fishing the same fish. And him and Hunter are, about as deadly as a team as you can get. And they come in and they turn their cart in. I'm sitting out there waiting to, waiting to go on the trailer. And he like comes over at me and he's like got a little shit-eating grin. And I'm like, well, how big? And he's like, I'm like, would you have won it last year? And he's like, how much was last year? I was like 56 pounds or something. He's like, no, wouldn't have won last year. We got like 54. And I'm like, yeah, I got like me and Jared have 54 too. And I said like 54 high end or like low 54. He's like, oh, I don't know, like 54 4 something or whatever, 4.6 or whatever. And I'm like, God, I think we have that same exact weight. And he's like, no way. And then he's like, let me call Hunter. So he calls Hunter, and I can just about imagine Hunt. Dude, someone has the same exact weight as us. Shane just told me. And I'm like, okay. Well, then, like, I didn't know the tiebreakers at the time were like your fish. So you go first biggest all the way through fifth. And I was like, well, what's your biggest? And he's like 30 3/4. I'm like, oh, same. What's your next biggest? And he's like 30 1/4. I'm like, oh, same. And I was like, and your next biggest? He's like a 30. And then he goes, and you got a 29 and a 28. And I'm like, uh-huh. And he's like, no way. And yeah, so that was nuts. And the crazy thing is like, you don't add more fish to your card. You would never go to like a 6th or 7th fish. because you're throwing fish back unless it's an upgrade. But our 6th and 7th biggest fish on both of our cards were the exact same too.
That's ridiculous, dude.
If you knew Lake of the Woods right now, like there is so many big ones in there, and it is so fun to have 5 fish that are exactly the same. That's nuts. Because yeah, it's like you're saying, man, if we got another 1/4 inch out of that one, or whatever, like. But it was crazy. It was super fun though. I actually was like pretty happy that that's how it worked out. So
yeah, I've never been to Lake of the Woods, so that's definitely a bucket list destination for me. Do you have any bucket list destinations? Any place that you're like, I've never been there, this is where I need to go?
Well, like Owen and all them guys have that lake out in or that reservoir out in Montana where they put up those stupid weights this year or whatever. That
Fort Peck?
I think that's going to be yeah. Well, no, there's a different one. Some little reservoir they had a tournament on out there. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
I don't know that one.
It wasn't Fort Peck. They had a little tournament. Actually, it wasn't a little tournament, but it was a smaller body of water, I think. And they put up like some. I think Gage was in it, and Owen's dad, and they put up some stupid. Like it was ridiculous. They were catching like 33 and 34 inchers and stuff. But I guess bucket list for me, I've never walleye fished Fort Peck. I've been out there for Lakers. And this is maybe a bucket list thing that I've like kind of half done, but not really. So I got to fish a tournament on Winnipeg last year on the south end, and I got to live scope it for the first. Literally is incredible. It was like chocolate milk water, so you had to hit them, but like when you did, it was like I literally caught one on a 1/2 ounce black jig with nothing on it because the creek chub fell off halfway during the cast, and I let the jig go down and hit the fish on the head, and the fish blew it up, and it was like, I don't know, like a 28 incher. And so it's like it's pretty stupid, but in the fall, we call it the guys trip. Me and my buddies go up to Hecla, which is a little bit farther up the lake on the west side, and there's like a channel between the islands there where they stack up, like all the Cisco's and whitefish go in there and the walleyes come in there. And I mean, it's like 200 plus fish in 4 hours, like 5-pounders, like just a 1 ounce hair jig on the bottom, just lift it up, thunk. There's no live scope involved. Like you just crush, right? I would love to go and live scope like the northern part of Winnipeg, like just up in the islands, up in like we the part of the lake that we fish, like Fargo area, Minnesota, North Dakota, everybody thinks that's Lake Winnipeg. Like that's just a tiny, tiny part of it. And I would love to just like giant hunt on Winnipeg, even like out in the basin and stuff. I caught a 13-pounder up there, and it was only 30 1/4 inches in the fall last year. And so I just think that just to spend like August or a couple weeks in August, like just discovering the north half of Winnipeg would be something that I would really, because those fish, that could be where your next really, really, really big one comes out of, just based off the forage and how little pressure those fish get.
This episode of the Walleye Files is brought to you by Striker Brands, built to keep you warm, dry, and fishing longer. From ice to open water, their gear handles whatever Mother Nature throws at you. Find yours at strikerbrands.com. Go early, go late, and go prepared. 2026, what event are you looking at? You're like, that one's mine.
Ooh. Before August, I would have said Sakakawea. That lake's been pretty good to me in the last couple of years. I mean, last year we got a top 10 with the NWT out there, had a shot with it and got a little aggressive, and still ended up scraping a top 10. And then the next day we went out and won the Casino Cup, literally the next day. And then drove up there with no practice this year from the NTC and won the AIM tournament. So I would say Sakakawea, but man, we fished the AIM championship out there this year in the first day. We only had 1 day to practice, and we had an RA bag. Like, if we hammer on these spots, we'll be able to get 30 pounds or whatever. And man, she turned ugly on us, sent us in 3 fish, 5 pounds, and a little bit of humble pie. So the next day we made a run and we cracked them and had a huge bag and scraped some money out of it. But I would have said Sakakawea before that day because I didn't know there was such thing as a bad bite on Sakakawea. But that was really tough. I would still say if I'm lucky enough to make the championship, Sakakawea, I love that place. I love the way it fishes. I love fishing reservoirs. That one Dwayne guy out there or whatever, he's pretty good at it too. So it's fun to chase him down on the reservoirs. Man, I reservoirs set up nice for the way I fish, and I'm definitely looking forward to that one. I don't know Oahe well enough to be like, yeah, I'm super confident in May because I've never been there that time of year on Oahe. So Sakakawea at the time we're there, that is gonna be really fun.
Yeah, that should be a really good bite. Honestly, every event should have a great bite, I would think. I don't know enough about Oahe in May, but Erie, Badenoch, Green Bay, I can't wait for the second half of the season, dude. Like that's 3 hours from my house at the max, other than Sac. It'd be pretty special to win one in Oconto, close as close as I can get to home. But dude, you've been so close multiple times. Like, is this next year the year? Like, you gonna win one?
I don't know. I don't know. Tom Wynn and I were texting this spring, and he's like, "Man, you're next, man. You're right there." And I'm like, "I hope so." It's. The one thing a piece of advice I guess I'd always say, I always try to fish to win. Like if you don't fish to win, you're not doing yourself justice. And yeah, we've been lucky in the past like little under 3 years here to have won some really big tournaments and stuff like that. But there's the one is still out there. Big NWT check. Like it's just you look at it and you're like, man, like every other check, like I've been lucky enough to get some of the Happy Gilmore checks and stuff, and you're like, man, those are sweet. But if one said like $100,000 on it and it was an NWT check, like that would be pretty badass. So just in partly because I know I've fished it for 6 years now, or 5 or 6 years, something like that. I just know how much work goes into it and how much it means to everybody, that fishes them. I've been lucky enough to shoot some TV shows in the past month with like Hall of Famers, Jason Shakir, Mark Kortz, like guys who have done a lot for the industry and also accomplished so much in our sport, from Angler of the Year titles and multiple NWT championships and just tournament wins. That like it is to be able to someday say, "Yep, I won a tournament," just like some of these Hall of Famers on the NWT. That would be unbelievable. But when it's your time, it's your time, and if that doesn't happen, it is what it is. But I'm still gonna be fishing to win.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I won my first Happy Gilmore check, and I had to give it back because they reuse it, and it sucked. But I always tell people that, because people always ask, "Oh, what would it be like to win one of those?" And it's like, well, the money'd be cool. That's great. I want the trophy, and I want to be able to tell everybody I was the best damn walleye fisherman on the water today. That's all I want. That's all I'm chasing.
Yep, 100%. That's what I said too. Like, no matter what happens in my fishing career or whatever for the rest of my life, if you win an NWT tournament, you were the baddest dude for 2 days in the world at walleye fishing, and that's what would be the coolest part about it. I think just feel like, hey, not for those 2 days. Like every other day, there might be someone who's better than me, but not for those 2 days. That would be the coolest part. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I could tell you a check or a plaque or anything on my wall. I couldn't tell you where any of that money went. Probably wasted on draft or the casino or some hunting gear or something like that. But yeah, no, the plaques and stuff. That's what means the most, right?
Yeah, that's why we do it, dude. All this stuff behind me, they're nice. That's
You got to go on.
that's not as big as it looks. They're not that special. I need bigger. Dude, you must have to have add a wing to the house for all the plaques you've won the last year.
Well, we're kind of in between. We just bought a house here in the last month, and we're going to be moving, so they're in a tote right now. But we got a couple totes of like those big yellow Costco totes filled up with plaques and stuff like that. So someday when I have a shop or a cool man cave or something, maybe we'll be able to put them up. But right now they're not really on display. So.
So before we close this out, dude, give me one tip for somebody who's just starting this, an inexperienced angler, somebody from the bank, weekend warrior, or myself, or John Hoyer, anybody, something somebody can learn from.
I would say the biggest thing is just fish as many tournaments as you can. I started 2017, somewhere around there. For the first 2 years that I fished tournaments, I fished like 28 tournaments a year, so it'd be like 56 tournaments. I cashed 4 checks out of 56 tournaments. Like, it definitely was a donation period, but I learned so much. That's the one thing I can say is just absorb information. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Obviously, some guys are all secretive and stuff like that, but like, look at a guy like Tom Wynn. Super open. You could go to one of Tom Wynn's seminars and go ask him questions for an hour after, and he would answer every single one. He goes and wins a tournament. I guarantee if I went to at Green Bay, like I talked to Tom plenty after the tournament, we actually towed his other boat home, because he lives 20 minutes north of me here in Wahpeton. But like if I was like, hey Tom, where'd you catch him and what'd you catch him on? He would tell you. I mean, it's stuff like that. Like, listen to those guys. Don't be afraid to go to seminars. I was fishing against Corey Sprengel for 3 or 4 years on the NWT, and I went and sat in his seminars every year when he came to Fargo at the Fargo Dome. Like, don't ever be too proud to listen to people that you're fishing against and stuff like that. Absorb information. That's kind of that, and then be yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not. Like, I never want to be something that I'm not. I just want to be Jake. And, that may be a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm never going to try to be somebody that I'm not or something that I'm not. So.
Well, I appreciate the Jake that you are, man. Thank you for being on. Thank you for being on, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. This has been fun. I'm glad we could sneak it in, and now we don't have any AWS Amazon outage to deal with or something. We're back up and running.
Yeah, we're rolling here. I'm getting trail cam pictures, and this app is working. We're good to go.
Oh, that's the biggest thing. Like, I wanted to do the podcast with you, but like if my Tacticam app shut down, that would be like, I don't really get too bent out of shape about anything. I kind of say, even keeled, and I'm a pretty positive person. But I think when my trail cameras like are not working or dead or, not sending pictures, like that's a trigger right there. That's a pretty good one.
Everybody, for those who don't know, the AWS outage, the Amazon outage that happened the other day, it knocked this whole website out. We couldn't use it. Jake and I were scrambling, but neither of our trail cameras were working. We were a little salty the other day. But thanks again, Jake. We appreciate you being on, brother.
Not a problem.
We'll see you next time.